Hey guys, welcome into the KC Sports Authority podcast. I'm your host, as always, Keegan Russell, and with me tonight is Mr. JB Merker. And before we even get into tonight's episode, just got to give you guys a reminder of where you can find the podcast. You can find us on all of our social media handles: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and now TikTok. Just search at KCSA Pod. Hit us up, give us a like and a follow. We are starting to grow and have a lot of fun over there. JB's been putting out some really great reels of the last couple episodes, and he's going to continue to do so. So check us out there. As well as where you can find us on the podcast. You can listen to us over on Spotify. You can also watch us over on YouTube. All right, JB, let's get into it. Kansas basketball and Bill Self do it once again. KU has now gotten another big-time recruit for the 2024 season, and that is Flory Bidunga, as we have heard. You know, we're not 100% sure on that pronunciation, but Flory Bidunga, the number one ranked recruit center in the class of 2024, top 4 recruit overall in the nation for next year. We've talked about him a little bit over the summer. You've heard his name as a guy who could possibly be landing with Kansas. Bill Self goes out and gets him. This was a tight race between KU, Duke, and Auburn down to the last minute, and he announced Saturday that he is coming to Kansas. And JB, before I even ask you about him, just kind of want to give some details to the public who have no idea who this guy is.
Yeah.
So Flory Bidunga, a 6'8", 220 center, who's been playing in Indiana the last couple of years, but moved over here from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. 5-star recruit already. The crazy thing is this kid's only been playing basketball for like 4 years, and he's already a top 5 recruit in the nation and the number 1 ranked recruit at his position for the class of 2024. So again, he's the number 4 overall ranked recruit for next year's class, and the number 1 ranked center. He's a guy who's got an incredibly high motor, high energy, super athletic, great shot blocker, fantastic rebounder. You know, his game is still pretty raw, but he's got a lot of capabilities and talent and ability, and I think he showcased that this last season. This is a guy that made his visit back in May to KU. And then over the summer, it was going to be a tight race between KU, Duke, and then Auburn kind of came into last minute. But Bill Self wins in the end and gets his guy for next season to kind of shape the roster. So, JB, let's just start with your excitement level for Bidunga. What do you know about him, and what do you want to tell fans about it before we break down his game?
Man, this guy is going to be the answer to if and when Hunter Dickinson leaves. He's going to be likely the 1-for-1 replacement. Of course, their games are going to be a little bit different. You know, Hunter's got an outside shot. Flory, still working on that with him. But, you know, it's really exciting for Kansas fans because we've really had the luxury of a great coach. We've had the luxury of a fantastic program, and we've had the luxury of high-profile recruits coming to Kansas year after year after year, and this is just a continuation of all of that. So super, super happy that we can continue that trend of getting some top-notch guys. And I think one of the things to remember is a guy like Flory is going to attract other top-notch players to commit, whether it's players in the 2024 class or whether it's a transfer from another school that instantly thinks that their game is going to complement his game. And really, I think when you combine him with the rest of the pieces that we know will return, plus what we could get even beyond this season, it's pretty exciting.
So speaking of highly ranked recruit in KU, I know he ranks up there, and I've got this pulled up, but I'm going to ask you if you know this off the top of your head. Where do you think Flory Bidunga ranks as one of the all-time highest? I'll tell you, he is one of the highest all-time rated recruits that Bill Self's landed, but where do you think he falls on that list? And again, this is not transfers. This is
right.
High school or international signings.
This is all-time?
all time. Well,
Oh
since
wow.
since they've really been able to dive into. I mean, this is think last 25, 30 years
Yeah.
because rankings and recruiting rankings and all that evaluations have changed over the years. But he
True.
is a five-star. He is a true five-star recruit.
I think I can't remember. See, here's the thing. I am poisoned by uh, just this notion that outside of Andrew Wiggins, that we could just like never get the top guy, and it's so frustrating to me that it never seems like the very top of the top wants to come to Kansas. But um, I gotta imagine that maybe top five. I think he is top five, maybe like number 4 or 5.
You are indeed correct in top five.
Okay,
He's first off,
okay,
he's the highest ranked big that KU's ever recruited. The
I
highest
believe
ranked
that.
big. As I've got this list pulled up, before I tell you where he ranks all time, the next big that's behind him was Cliff Alexander. He was also a five-star recruit, number one in the nation, number 4 nationally, but number 1 at his position. So he was the second highest. But Flory slides in at number 3 as KU's third highest
Wow.
ranked recruit. This is according to 247.com, 247sports.com. Slides in right behind Josh Jackson at number 2 and Andrew Wiggins at number 1. So,
Yep.
fans, first thing you're probably thinking is, oh my gosh, this guy's going to be an absolute stud if he is the number 3 ranked. Now, remember, rankings are all about potential and how their team can
Cliff
fit
Alexander.
to the ceiling. Because I think a lot of us can sit here, and as I'm going through this list, let me pull it back up. KU's previous all-time highly ranked recruits. Now that puts Josh Selby at number 4. We all know how that season went. He struggled to get eligibility, had a few bright spots, but just never fit in. Cliff Alexander, we all remember that experiment. Highly ranked guy, highly recruited, incredibly talented. Couldn't put it together. Got suspended at the end of the year and missed the postseason. Let's do another highly ranked guy. Check Diallo again came in highly ranked, number 1 in his position, number 4 ranked nationally in that year's class. Struggled his freshman year, didn't get a whole lot of playing time, ended up becoming ineligible down the stretch. Quentin Grimes, another one, number 2 in his position, 13 nationally, didn't fit in very well. The list kind of goes on and on. I don't want to spend too much time in here. I've got Billy Preston, obviously didn't work out. Silvio having his issues, Carlton Bragg, yeah, you name it. But Flory does slide in as the number 3, which is pretty exciting. Does that necessarily mean he's going to be one of the best freshmen or one of the best players in KU basketball history? Who knows? It just means that of the guys Bill Self has gone after up to this point, there's only 2 guys that are coming into a class with higher expectations and potential than what Flory is, which is crazy to say because we've had some other top freshmen. Most recent memory, Grady Dick had a really good year. Josh Jackson obviously had a really good season his freshman year. Ben McLemore technically was a redshirt, but had an incredible year. But Flory slides in there. So before we get into like the depths and the deep discussion on Flory as a player, I did want to just kind of take a few seconds here to think about where he ranks in KU basketball history as a recruit, and if you think that's fair to start off with, um, just some of your expectations or memories of some highly ranked recruits, and where do you think Flory kind of slides in here? Granted, we haven't seen a whole lot of tape on him yet, but to be listed at number 3 to start is incredible.
It is. It's pretty big to have a guy like that. Now, I think for him in this scenario, he's going to be coming into a program that is likely losing Hunter Dickinson to the draft. A lot of people seem to think this is the instant no-brainer. 100% KU expects to lose Hunter Dickinson after this year because we got Flory. Bill Self is not going out there saying Hunter is only staying 1 year. You will play 30 minutes a game. He's not saying that in recruiting, but what I do know that he's saying is you're going to get a lot of minutes. Even if Hunter stayed, just think about it. Even if Hunter stayed, what would we have? We would have Hunter. We would have KJ. Likely, he might test the waters, but then come back, and then we have Zach Clements off the red shirt and Flory. That's it. Those are our guys. Um, I mean, we really could use a lot of help in that department, and I think there's room on the floor for both of them. Maybe not at the same time, but on the roster, absolutely.
Yeah, this is a move that solidifies your 5-man spot for the next couple seasons, hopefully. I think most of us do feel like Hunter's gone after 1 year, but again, even if Hunter does stick around that extra year, Flory's still gonna have a lot of opportunity to step right in because of the way Hunter plays and the way Flory plays. There's room for them to share the court, but it could be. I'm not saying he is what Ernest Uday was this last year, but Ernest and Hunter, clearly there was some thought on Ernest's end of how do I play with this guy? If I can't play with this guy, then I'm not getting a lot of minutes. Um, but yeah, so Flory slides in. He's kind of undersized for a true 5-man. He really is built a lot like Czech Diallo, just a little bit more athletic. Czech Diallo is that undersized 6'9", 220 center. But Flory's a super athletic guy. He can run up and down the court. He's got a high motor, strong work ethic. You know, he's not afraid to get his hands dirty in the paint and bounce off guys and bump into people. He's built incredibly. I mean, this guy's ripped. He's going to come to KU when he gets here next year, and he's going to probably put on another 10, 15 pounds of muscle mass. He's just a perfectly built player for a Bill Self team. I think Bill Self is over the roof excited about this guy because of the potential he can have. And we'll get into here in a few minutes about, some player comparisons and whatnot. But yeah, Flory Bidunga, number 3 ranked KU basketball recruit of all time. So he's going to come in with a lot of expectations. Doesn't necessarily mean he's got to wow everybody from day one and be a 20-10 kind of guy. But as you look a little bit back at his high school days, he this last season as well, Flory's kind of an interesting case. He's one who could technically reclassify and come to this season. There was talk of that over the summer that he might reclassify. I have not seen anything in the latest articles discussing this as a possibility. Even if he did, there's probably a strong chance that he would probably redshirt. But if you look at his junior season in Indiana, he was the Gatorade player, national player. I'm sorry, the Gatorade Player of the Year for the state of Indiana. He averaged 20.2 points per game, 13.8 rebounds per game, so a double-double, and then 4.5 blocks per game. And to me, the 4.5 blocks per game is actually what stands out the most about his skill set, which we'll get into here. But super talented. Again, a guy that's only been playing basketball for 4 years and has already found his way into the top 5 recruit in the nation for his class. JB, what do you know about his play style and his game, and what can fans kind of expect to see on the court? Not necessarily how is he going to fit in with the Bill Self system yet, but if we plugged him in tomorrow, what would fans be looking for out of his game?
Yeah, it's a good question. When we look at his highlights, I think a few things stand out. He's got some rawness to him. Yeah, he's a little green, but you don't become this highly ranked recruit being extremely raw. Like this guy, he does have some fundamental skills. Saw a couple highlights where he was actually running the ball down the court, and he kind of has a little bit of guard skills. I'm not saying he's got the handle of a point guard, but he doesn't have to dunk it always. That being said, what we can expect is dunk after dunk after dunk.
Lob City,
Flory,
baby.
it's Lob City, man. In Lawrence, Kansas, we're not going to rename Lawrence to Lob City because the name is too classic. But my goodness, Flory Bidunga is going to be catching lobs. He is going to absolutely have the mindset of I have to dunk this ball every single time that I have it and I'm down low. When you look at his highlights, it's him backing up his defenders and either doing a post move, like maybe he does have a hook shot to him. I would say he's got mainly dunks and he's got a nice little hook. But other than that, as far as any shooting, I've seen some 10-foot
Mm.
jumpers, but it's not really going out to the 3-point line too often. I've heard that he's been shooting some threes, but I haven't seen any highlights of any threes. So it's a little tough to really believe that. I'm just excited for him to come into Kansas where he can absolutely fill the role that he's already filling for his team in high school. I mean, we don't need a guy to really learn a whole lot of new tricks. We just need a guy to come in and dominate, and that's what he's been doing.
He's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I think he brings a little bit more athleticism to the five man, but has a little bit more old school game. Not quite a back to the basket, back you down kind of guy. But honestly, as we get into player comparisons here, I'm not saying that this is his ceiling or his true potential, but I think the situation reminds me a lot of a Czech Diallo or even a Joel Embiid. Coming in with 2 years of just insane stats and numbers that people just get excited about. They see that frame and they can see how he can grow into it, but a lot of raw talent and ability. But because of that athleticism, he's getting noticed. And I think he could have some similarities. I think if you had to describe what he would do offensively, I think he lines up a little bit more with what Joel Embiid was at Kansas than what Czech Diallo was. But this is a guy who's going to come in and kind of be that rim protector. I think honestly it'd be exciting next year, assuming Hunter leaves, seeing him and KJ alongside each other, having two insanely athletic post players that are about the same height, but are going to go after it. They're going to have a high motor, high work ethic. They're gonna fight for rebounds, and Flory's going to run up and down the court. I think this is a guy that fans who were disappointed that Ernest Uday left, I think you're going to see some of what Ernest could have been had he stuck around, and maybe year 3 Ernest is what year 1 Bidunga could be. But yeah, as I was going through player comparisons, I couldn't really come up with an exact profile. I think he does, as far as former Kansas players, I think he does have a little bit of Cliff Alexander in him as well. He's not your typical stretch big, but he's also not your typical 6'10", 6'11", 7-footer. That being said, I think he's a more athletic David McCormick. Again, McCormick was a little bit raw offensively and not as much bounce as what Bidunga can be, but David never gave up. He was always working his tail off. He was going after rebounds, getting better with his footwork. And I think Bidunga could have a higher ceiling than what David did. And if that's the case, then hey, that's not too bad. Even though David frustrated fans a lot, the guy won us a national championship, and that's all
He's a
you can
national
really ask
champion.
for. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I was
honestly,
looking
that's
him
what
up.
Bidunga said when Bidunga said one of the reasons he came to Kansas. He said national championship, man. This is the best place to go to try and compete, which is funny because Duke's also on that list. But I think this is a classic example of Bill Self is the best coach in America, so he's going to put you in the best position.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he didn't make any kind of wrong choice, that's for sure. Yeah, I was going to bring that up. His game to me actually reminded me a lot of David McCormick, especially with those kind of turnaround hook shots. I mean, that's the shot that David hit to win the national title. Flory has that shot in him. So it was kind of exciting to see that and then think, well, maybe we just have another game winner from Flory in a couple years and we win another natty. I think that'd be pretty nice. It might be a little bit of wishful thinking, of course, tough to get a natty, but man, he's coming into a program that absolutely can make that a reality. So I'm looking forward to that. I wrote down he's kind of like a David McCormick with almost the athleticism of KJ Adams because he can bounce too, and he's when he dunks the ball, he dunks angrily, and it's just exciting. Every highlight is the quintessential I love college basketball because of guys like this type of highlight, and it gets the pump or it gets the crowd pumped every single time. So I'm looking at this like, man, he can do no wrong if he just comes in and fills that kind of a role. He can really see a lot of success here.
I did kind of come up with one NBA comparison, and this is, if he gets to this status. But a guy I think of that is similar build, similar frame, similar work ethic on the court is the Heat's Bam Adebayo. Now, Bam obviously is much more talented offensively and has grown into that. He can step out and hit jumpers. But I think that what you see when you get Bam out there is, he's going to be a rim protector. He's going to be aggressive. He's going to fight for rebounds. He's going to use his athleticism to run up and down the court, to kind of be that rim runner. I think there's some potential for Flory to get to a place like that. Even when Bam was at Kentucky, nobody was asking him to come out and step out and hit jumpers. But I think he could be similar to what a Bam Adebayo does. And if that's the case, then yeah, you're getting as much as you can. I think I would be disappointed, though, if he did end up more like a Czech Diallo. I don't know if Flory's a one and done kind of guy. I do think his game will translate well to the NBA, even though he's undersized. But I think the only thing that would leave fans disappointed is if he's more of a check Diallo. And I don't think you're asking him to come in next year and average double digit points or
Well,
anything. But if he doesn't have an impact on the team, then we're going to be disappointed.
I'm not so sure if he's even really undersized, though. I mean, you had said 6'8". I didn't really see that when I was looking him up. And ESPN said 6'9", 6'10" on some other sites, and it's tough, because some sites are going to use with shoes, without
Yeah.
shoes. It's so hard to know exactly how tall these guys are. I think he's got 6'10" on his Instagram. I might go
Yeah, I've
by
seen
what
I've
he's got
same
on
as
that.
high as 6'10".
Yeah,
And the
and
game's young, so he could still be growing this year too.
exactly. I think if he is 6'10", if that's his true height, and if he's developing into those kinds of players that we were mentioning earlier, yeah, we've got a pretty good situation on our hands.
So I don't want to spend too much time diving into his game necessarily now, because we haven't seen a lot of it. But now that we know he's coming here, we've got a whole upcoming season to get more familiar with. But let's jump to next season. He is the first recruit of the 2024 class. You know, there are a couple other centers KU was looking at. I don't know how strongly they're looking at those guys now, but now this gives Bill Self the ability to go out and find that next talented wing or guard to come in. But as we look at next year's team, without knowing what else is going to come, and again, let's assume Hunter's gone. How do you think Flory's going to fit in with a coming off of redshirt Zach Clements, a now senior KJ Adams? You know, what do you make of that trio of guys, and what do you think playing time looks like a year and a half out from now?
I think immediately, I think Zach is probably still going to be on the bench. Now, I think Bill Self is going to start him maybe at least in exhibition games or just maybe to start the season. But I think absolutely down the line we're going to see Zach probably move to the bench again. I hate to say it because, of course, we want to see the best out of Zach, and we saw some glimpses of some great things in the Puerto Rico exhibition games. But if we've got a guy like Flory coming in, and if he can just fill the role better than what Zach can, it's gonna be a fight between those guys. KJ, assuming we don't get anybody else, KJ is gonna be pretty much our only power forward. I mean,
And
of course,
KJ's locked in. He's not coming out
yeah,
of the starting lineup
there's
ever
no way.
again.
Yeah, and especially after what we saw in Puerto Rico, he was phenomenal. So, really looking forward to that. I think it's a little early. Of course, we know that it's a little early to tell, but I could easily see Zach still kind of filling that first big off the bench role, really by the end of the season. So, hopefully, Flory continues to develop this year into being a extremely reliable source for some points and some rebounds and some great defense.
I do think it could be something similar to like what we saw when Embiid was a freshman. You know, Tarek Black also came in as a transfer that year as an upperclassman, and Tarek got the start for most of the first half of the season. And then as Embiid got his footing, then Embiid kind of took over. And then Tarek and Jamari, were coming off the bench as that I called them the Bruise Brothers back then because they
I
were,
love that.
just these two big jack dudes that were a wall in the paint. But Zach obviously has a very different play style from what those guys were like, and being here for 3 years now, Zach probably has the edge as far as with Bill Self as far as getting playing time. But yeah, that could leave an interesting looking group next year. I think it's one that can still get you excited because again, Flory probably has a much higher ceiling than Zach. But if Zach can kind of figure out how to be the stretch for, pop out and shoot and play good defense, there's probably plenty of minutes to go around where those two can be on the court together. I could also see a lot of KJ and Flory together because of how similar they are. Neither one can really step out and shoot, but you've got two freakishly athletic guys that you could run some nice high low action with. And if KJ develops that 15-foot jumper, then that makes up for it. But I'm excited. I think Flory's gonna be fantastic. Again, it would be really, really cool if somehow he does reclassify and gets on the team this year, even if he doesn't play this year, just for the fact of getting in and being a part of the program and hitting the college weight room as soon as possible. Again, I don't think that's going to happen. I have not seen anything that says that is the case, but it's potential. But yeah, KU gets a monster big man. who's going to bring a lot of excitement. I think this is a guy that you're going to see with a smile on his face all the time. Every interview you go back and watch, he's always full of energy and excitement. He doesn't look down, doesn't look like anything gets to him and negatively. He just looks like he's a kid out there having a ton of fun. Um, and I think a lot of guys that come from his background who come from overseas are new to the game. They come to a whole new world, new society to kind of get in and join these AAU circuits. And they're just having a lot of fun soaking up what's going on around them. And a guy like Flory seems like he's going to be built for the kind of spotlight because of how excited he is. He doesn't seem like a guy that is nervous when the spotlight's on him. He looks like a guy that's, the entertainment when he steps into a room. So I'm excited for him. KU fans, I think you guys will be excited for him. If you haven't yet, start checking out some of his game tapes and footage. Fun highlight reel. I'm sure JB is going to find a couple of highlights this week to showcase. Would
Already
love to
working
hear.
on it.
I'm sure you are. But you guys fans, I would love to kind of get your take. So after this drops, please leave your comments below. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify, hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Let us know what you think about Flory Bidunga and how excited you are for him. And then maybe throw us your thoughts on what he would look like in a Kansas uniform if he were to play this year. What would that change for this year's team? Again, don't think it's going to happen, but it's possible. But yeah, that's really all I got. JB, got anything else you want to add?
No, sir. I'm just excited.
It's crazy that basketball has not been, well, I know we just played Puerto Rico, but it's technically still the off season, and the off season just continues to be full of excitement and energy and news. And this is just that next domino to fall. And I'm sure there'll be some more things coming before we get into late night, which late night's in about 2 months. They've got Bill Self boot camp starting here pretty soon. We'll probably get a little bit more insight on Johnny Furphy when he gets over here and see how he starts mixing in with the team. I'm sure after they get a couple of practices in, we'll see some nice media sessions. But yeah, Kansas basketball, man, there's not a day that goes by that does not leave you, wondering about what's coming next. There's just always news to break down. So I don't know if we'll have any more KU basketball news in the next few weeks, but if we do, we'll for sure jump on it. I know coming up here for me, some things we're going to start tackling into is it's football season, and we've got fantasy football starting. I do all my fantasy football really late because I like to see most of the preseason come to an end before I draft guys. So I'll be starting up some fantasy football episodes here soon. We'll obviously start talking a little bit more about the Chiefs. Working on a couple guests to come on and do some of that with us. And then, of course, get into KU football because KU football is several weeks away. For those of you that are excited about KU football season, next Friday, KU is having an open tailgate at the Anderson complex the practice facility. And I was making sure I give you guys the right date on that. But of course, now my calendar's not working. That is, I want to say next Friday's the 18th. Yeah, Friday the 18th. Go check that out over at Anderson. It's in the evening. If you don't know the details on it, look up Kansas football on Twitter and they'll tell you. I'm going to go to that. It's going to be fun. The players will be there, coaches, just kind of an exciting time to get pumped for KU football. And then from there, we'll be just a few weeks out from basketball season, and then the content will just continue flowing. So thank you guys for checking this one out. Again, semi-short one. If you stuck with us through the whole way, thank you. If you guys have any thoughts, questions, or topics you'd like us to discuss on the podcast, you can always hit us up and share those with us. We are open to talking just about anything. Again, got a few things working behind the scenes that I was hoping to be announcing by now. And they're just not quite ready, but fun stuff coming. I promise. It is all coming down the road. Just got to get a few more things lined up before we start making announcements. But thanks again, guys. This has been a lot of fun, as always, talking Kansas basketball. Love talking with JB, and you guys are great. And you know what we do here. We always say, for the happy guys.